Taiwan People's Party founder Ko Wen-je is released on bail after a year in detention on corruption charges.
还是要谢谢小草们的支持。这一年来，因为有你们，我才可以撑到现在。
China slams Canada and Australia for sending warships through the Taiwan Strait, but Taipei and its partners say the waterway is open for everyone. A report suggests imports of Qatari natural gas could suffer if China applied pressure, but the U.S. plans to help with natural gas of its own.
Reportedly, Taiwan is in discussion with U.S. businesses to increase the capacity for the U.S. to export more LNG to Taiwan, and I think that's a very positive development.
Plus,
the countdown to Semicon has begun, and organizers are laying out their big aims and stakes for this year's show.
welcome to TaiwanPlus News. I'm Yvonne Young. Taiwan People's Party founder Ko Wen-je has been released on bail after being detained incommunicado for nearly a year while being investigated for corruption. Supporters waited hours for him outside the courthouse in Taipei. Tiffany Wong was there and brings us this report.
A huge commotion at the Taipei District Courthouse as Taiwan People's Party founder Ko Wen-je emerges after paying a U.S. $2 million bail. The former mayor of Taipei had spent a year detained incommunicado as prosecutors investigated him for corruption and embezzlement.
首先，还是要谢谢小草们的支持。这一年来，因为有你们，我才可以撑到现在。
Standing next to his wife Chen Pei-chi and TPP chair Huang Guochang, Ko reflected on his time in detention, proclaiming his innocence and saying that even after a year, prosecutors have not found evidence of wrongdoing. The court decided it's unlikely that Ko will try to destroy evidence or collude with others involved, given prosecutors already had a year to investigate, though they could still appeal the court's decision. And while he's out for now, Ko will need to wear an ankle monitor and can't leave the country. Ko and his supporters were defiant, accusing the government and President Lai Ching-te of interfering in the justice system.
台湾民主化30年，怎么还有这种冤狱？我个人的苦难就这样过去了，但是我希望台湾以后可以更好一点呢。不要这，为什么要让整个国家陷入四分五裂？赖清德，你好好想一想吧。
The ruling Democratic Progressive Party on Monday morning said it respects the judicial process, but that it doesn't comment on individual cases. After speaking to the media, Ko was swept into the crowd, hundreds of supporters waiting in the afternoon heat to catch a glimpse of him. Ko plans to visit his mother in Hsinchu and his father's grave before returning home for the first time in months. Ryan Wu, Fu Huahong, and Tiffany Wong in Taipei for TaiwanPlus.
President Lai Ching-te says it's time for Taiwan to rest and recuperate after this summer's polarizing recall elections. In an exclusive interview with the Liberty Times, Lai said his government is shifting focus to improving Taiwan's economic outlook and social welfare. It comes weeks after a cabinet reshuffle saw new, relatively young ministers taking over key departments. A heated campaign this year to recall dozens of opposition lawmakers resulted in all of them keeping their seats in the legislature. Opposition parties have accused the ruling Democratic Progressive Party of wasting public funds and using the recall movement to cement its own power. Taiwan's Coast Guard has taken delivery of its fourth 1,000-ton patrol vessel, the Hualien. Vice President Bi Khim-hsiao presided over the ceremony, calling it a major step forward in the country's policy to boost domestic shipbuilding.
正如花莲是迎向太平洋的前线，花莲舰也将成为守护国家海疆的第一道防线。
In addition to the Hualien, a new Coast Guard vessel was officially named the Penghu. Both ships are built for endurance and seaworthiness, equipped with medical facilities and high-pressure water cannons. The Coast Guard administration says the additions will strengthen law enforcement, fisheries patrols, rescue missions, and responses to gray zone incursions. Canada has confirmed that Canadian and Australian warships sailed through the Taiwan Strait over the weekend, which drew criticism from Beijing for undermining regional stability. What does this signal for the Indo-Pacific security? Ellen Liu has more.
A Royal Canadian Navy frigate and an Australian guided missile destroyer. This past weekend, these warships transited through the Taiwan Strait, a move China has criticized as a show of force and provocation. But in Taiwan, the ship's transit was welcomed by some, who stressed that the strait does not belong to China.
台湾海峡是属于国际水域，不是中国的内海。当台湾海峡是国际水域的时候，中国意图对台湾发动军事行动的时候，就必须考量国际是否会介入。在这一个国际海域进行两栖运动的时候，可能会遭受的困难点。所以，台湾海峡作为公海，对台湾的安全守卫是加分的哈。
The transits came just after China's September 3rd military parade, where the country showed off its latest cutting-edge weapons to the world. And data from marine traffic showed a U.S. government vessel also sailed through the straits the night before, though Taiwan's defense ministry did not confirm that passage. Despite Beijing's protest, countries including Taiwan and the U.S. say the strait is an international waterway open to navigation. One expert says the recent transit signals that democratic countries like Australia and Canada are upholding their long-standing policy of supporting an open Indo-Pacific and freedom of navigation.
我想，这一次他们澳洲跟加拿大军舰穿越台海，它并不是光只针对中国的93阅兵，而是表示它战略上一个稳定的政策。那只是在时间点上面刚好就是可以对中国它在93阅兵的这个作为进行一个反应。所以我想，这对于区域安全可以说是反过来给北京一个嚇阻的讯号了。
Last week, a Canadian frigate also joined the Philippines, Australia, and the U.S. for drills in the Philippine Sea. Canada emphasized that the exercises comply with the UN law, though China says they damage regional peace. Klein Wang and Ellen Liu for TaiwanPlus.
China has placed sanctions on Japanese upper house member Seki Hei for his remarks on Taiwan, Xinjiang, Tibet, and Hong Kong. Seki was born in China but left for Japan after the Tiananmen Square massacre. He became a Japanese citizen in 2007 and was elected to his seat in July this year. Seki took to social media to call the sanctions, which include an entry ban and asset freeze, an honor. A political shakeup in Japan after Prime Minister Ishiba Shigeru announced his resignation over the weekend. His exit follows the ruling party's poor performance in the country's past two parliamentary elections. As one of Taiwan's close regional partners, a change of power in Japan could have ripple effects for Taipei. Leslie Liao reports.
A sudden announcement from Japan's Prime Minister on a Sunday afternoon.
I have decided to resign as the Liberal Democratic Party president.
Ishiba's resignation means he'll also vacate his role as prime minister. His decision comes amid mounting pressure and waning support from within his ruling Liberal Democratic Party. Under his leadership, the LDP and the smaller Komeito Party lost their coalition majority in both of Japan's parliamentary chambers. Ishiba had resisted prior calls to step down. As one of Taiwan's close neighbors, Japan plays a key role in regional peace and stability. The two countries share robust ties at a time when nearby China is ramping up aggression in the region. Beijing has threatened to take Taiwan by force, but under Ishiba, Japan helped keep China at arm's length.
Japan has continued to go forward with some of its decision to deploy long-range military missiles to areas where will potentially be considered as crucial for defending against a Chinese attack on Taiwan.
And though a change in leadership is coming for the LDP, it seems unlikely that the party will shift its Taiwan-friendly policies, as most of the frontrunners for the party's next leader are also seen as being supportive of the country. But there's no guarantee Japan's next prime minister will be from the LDP. If it remains in power, it needs to form a coalition with other parties, each with their own stances.
I think it's really coming back to what sort of partners do they decide and want to include into this coalition, and whether that is going to have a fundamental impact on Japan's foreign policy position.
On Monday, Taiwan's foreign ministry said that while it won't comment on Japan's domestic affairs, Ishiba did indeed foster stronger Taiwan-Japan ties. Taipei says it will continue cooperating with Tokyo in multiple areas. Preparations are now underway to choose the next head of the LDP. Ishiba says he'll remain in office until a successor is named. A change in Japan's leadership is on the horizon, and Taiwan will be keeping a close watch. Leon Lian and Leslie Liao for TaiwanPlus.
Kyiv is calling for more help from abroad after Moscow carried out its largest drone strike since the invasion of Ukraine began. And that help might be coming as U.S. President Donald Trump looks at a new phase of sanctions on Russia. John Van Trieste has this report.
Explosions fill Kyiv's skyline Sunday as part of Russia's biggest drone attack into Ukraine yet. At least 4 died in Kyiv, including an infant. But while this wasn't the deadliest Russian strike so far, it was different than those that have come before. Psychologically, it struck a new kind of blow, setting the Ukrainian government's main building ablaze. And among Ukrainians, the scale of the attack has cemented new doubts about promises of peace talks or a deal, as Russia's growing ties with countries like China keep it buoyed in the face of Western pressure.
They will continue strikes for as long as they have the capabilities to do so. Only when we are given enough missiles and when the world forces China to stop buying energy resources from Russia so that they do not have money, otherwise nothing good will come.
We are waiting for when this will be over. World leaders gather together to come up with a solution, but in reality nothing has changed. But on the contrary, the situation is getting worse.
Moscow didn't immediately comment on the strikes. But Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky says Russia is testing how far the world will allow it to go. He's calling for allies to put more sanctions on Russia and to help Ukraine's long-range capabilities.
Putin does not want negotiations. He is clearly hiding from them. So Russia's fuel shortages and other economic troubles are the logical response to its refusal to agree to a ceasefire or a meeting at the leaders' level.
The United States Special Envoy for Ukraine, Keith Kellogg, wrote on social media that Sunday's strike looks like an escalation and not a signal Russia is interested in a diplomatic solution to the war. And even U.S. President Donald Trump, who has so far avoided toughening sanctions on Russia, told a reporter he's ready to do so now, though he didn't elaborate. He also says European leaders are coming to the U.S. this week to try to settle the war. He says, above all, that he's determined to end the conflict.
So, no, I am not thrilled with what's happening there, I will tell you. I think it's going to get settled. So I settled 7 wars. This, I would have said, would have been maybe the easiest one to settle of all. But with war, you never know what you're getting. But we're going to get it. I believe we're going to get it settled. But I am not happy with them. I'm not happy with anything having to do with that war. It's just such a waste of great humanity.
But there have been meetings of this kind before, from Trump's separate summits with Putin and Zelensky, and a large gathering in Paris of Ukraine's allies, to no effect so far. Meanwhile, Russia's President Putin just last week defied Western efforts to isolate him, standing on stage with a range of world leaders at a military parade in Beijing. Ties with China and North Korea seem especially warm right now. The question is, what concrete measures the U.S. and Europe can come up with, and whether there'll be enough to get things onto the path towards peace. Chris Ma and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
South Korea and the U.S. have reached a deal to release hundreds of Korean workers detained in an immigration raid at a Hyundai car factory in the U.S. state of Georgia.
As a result of swift and united efforts by government ministries, business groups, and companies, talks with the United States for the release of the detained workers have been concluded.
The group will be flown back to South Korea on a chartered plane. The raid was supported by U.S. President Donald Trump, who referred to the workers as illegal aliens. In a social media post, he called on foreign companies to respect the U.S.'s immigration laws. Trump says the United States still has a great relationship with South Korea, despite the raid by the Immigration Office, also known as ICE.
ICE was doing right because they were here illegally. But we do have to work something out where we bring in experts so that our people can be trained so that they can do it themselves.
Korean officials say they will find ways to improve the visa system for its workers in the U.S. to prevent any similar incidents. And coming up after the break, a town in southern Taiwan holds its 150th birthday bash with a traditional pole climbing competition.
From a small studio in Taiwan to a global community for undaunted voices.
I'm just very grateful that they are able to spend time being part of Taiwan Talks and also being here with us today.
It's so refreshing that from a different country, from Taiwan, we are actually getting to see a show without noise, without yelling, and it's just complete facts and expert opinion.
Every single episode is about a Taiwan perspective.
Taiwanese speaking something from our heart.
Bringing forward all these different perspectives and voices
to engage the world more seriously and continuously.
So the world will know that we are part of this globalized world.
British warship transited the international waters.
We're facing
without compromising our national
security. A lot of potential for these countries.
How important do you think that is?
The rule of law based order.
It's been 3 years of almost every waking hour devoted to the show. Today, we have something, and that something is precious.
For more stories from Taiwan and Osaka, download the TaiwanPlus app.
Welcome back. You're watching TaiwanPlus News. Semicon, one of the world's largest chip industry events, is just a few days from opening in Taipei. But organizers are already setting the stage by laying out their vision for the show and the future of semiconductors in Taiwan. Chris Gorin was at the pre-opening event and brings us this report.
The show floor may not open until Wednesday, but here in Taipei, pre-events for one of the world's largest chip shows, Semicon, are already kicking off. Before the opening, CEOs and board members of industry group Semi are mapping out the main themes of this year's event, including Taiwan's key role in AI, advanced packaging, and memory. But geopolitics is also front and center.
这个比方你有半导体的产能，你的1奈米放哪里，2奈米放哪里呢？就被当成一个 weaponize， 被当成一个你的特别的谈判的武器、谈判的工具。这个互惠互补关系的复杂度跟不确定性，它是不可逆的缺失。我们不会期望说哪个总统下台了以后，这个事情就不见了。所以这个事情就是将来的 new norm。
Speakers are also weighing in on the pending U.S. Section 232 semiconductor tariffs, which have not yet been announced.
半导体行业其实是一个全球的协作行业，它如果只是就是它比较难透过一个单一一个国家跟国家或者一个区域之间跟美国的互动，而就用同样的一个关税去定下来，而不会影响到个别国家的一个状况。也就是因为这个样子，所以我们的半导体的关税在232的这个讨论当中会延长比较多的时间。
This year marks the 30th anniversary of Semicon, and it's slated to be its largest ever. Organizers say more than 1,200 companies will be represented, and they expect around 100,000 visitors. Trade tensions aside, the chip industry is hot, and this week in Taipei, the sector aims to show why partnering with Taiwan's ecosystem remains mission critical. Patrick Chun and Chris Gorin in Taipei for TaiwanPlus.
A new report from the U.S. Foundation for Defense of Democracy says Taiwan's liquefied natural gas imports from Qatar could pose an energy risk for Taipei amid rising pressure from China. It comes as the U.S. moves to send more of its LNG to Taiwan with a new Senate bill that will speed up exports. Our reporter Ai Chi spoke to Drew Thompson from Singapore Nanyang Technological University to find out how Taiwan can manage its energy security.
The majority of Taiwan's energy is imported. The new FDD report suggests relying on Chinese allies might pose a risk to Taiwan's energy security. How does Taiwan shape its natural gas import policy?
It has always treated energy supply as an economic rather than a national security issue. Prior to 2022, Taiwan's third largest LNG supplier was Russia. I think the fact that Taiwan was dependent on Russian energy is certainly an indication of the economic considerations rather than the geostrategic and political ones. But I think that's going to have to change. Certainly we see that there's increasing public attention to the potential consequences of a blockade or an attack by China. So I think if you think about it, provision of energy is one of the most fundamental public goods that a government and utilities can provide. So the government's inability to provide it is really an indication of regime failure. So I think a blockade, energy disruption would certainly be a justification for Beijing to use force to compel unification. So that's why it's so important for Taiwan to get its energy security and its energy resilience correct, and not just think of energy as a purely economic problem. So instead of purchasing from the supplier with, say, the lowest price or the shortest transportation time, then I think Taiwan now has to increasingly consider broader national security relationships.
Will additional deals with the United States or other unofficial allies help secure Taiwan's energy supply?
So for the last 3 years, the U.S. has been providing an increasing amount of LNG to Taiwan on long-term contracts. And reportedly, Taiwan is in discussion with U.S. businesses to increase the capacity for the U.S. to export more LNG to Taiwan. And I think that's a very positive development. It certainly is in line with Taiwan's security requirements, it's certainly in line with the political objectives of the Trump administration. So that'll further and deepen the U.S.-Taiwan economic and security relationship.
Are there any realistic steps Taiwan can take to boost its energy security?
I think the August 23rd referendum that failed to pass indicated that there's very strong public support for nuclear power in Taiwan. About 75% of the voters supported it. So I think nuclear power is really a very, very elegant solution for Taiwan's energy security. It does a couple of things for Taiwan. It enhances energy resiliency and security. It's in line with Taiwan's climate goals. It creates a steady base load that complements wind and other renewable energy sources that can be irregular based on wind or solar. And nuclear energy is a pretty mature technology, and the reactor designs that Taiwan has used historically have proven to be very safe. And I think also very important is that Taiwan has the human capacity, the human capital and expertise to benefit from nuclear energy.
That was Drew Thompson from Singapore Nanyang Technological University. Hengchun Township in southern Taiwan celebrated 150 years since its founding over the weekend. While the occasion saw more run-of-the-mill fanfare like music and fireworks, the main event was a pole climbing competition, a proud and historic Taiwanese tradition. Leslie Liao has more.
How would you celebrate the 150th anniversary of your city's founding? Well, if you're Hengchun in southern Taiwan, you hold a concert and a contest where competitors race to the top of greasy poles. It's a traditional activity called Qianggu, which has been around since the Qing dynasty, and it's a key part of Hengchun's annual celebrations.
的内底，咱的恒春的四股杯活动
目标往我们2025恒春古城国际树菇棚前进哦，冲啊！
This year, 17 teams signed up to make the slippery ascent. Thousands of people watched the spectacle held on a massive makeshift platform. Participants had to climb one of 36 poles, each 23 meters tall. In the end, a team from a funeral service company won the event, taking roughly 7 minutes to make it to the top. They got to take home a grand prize of around $11,000 US. Climbing greasy poles may not be the most conventional way of celebrating a town's birthday, but in this southern Taiwanese city, it's a cherished tradition, one that's still going strong after more than a century. Howard Zhang and Leslie Liao for TaiwanPlus.
Taiwan's women's 540-kilogram team has won gold at the World Tug-of-War Championships for the 4th straight year. It's the latest in a series of feats at a competition which was held this year in Nottingham, England. Taiwan, which competes as Chinese Taipei, also took gold in the junior mixed 520-kilogram and the under-23 women's 500-kilogram categories on Sunday. The event wrapped up over the weekend with Taiwan winning 5 gold and 2 silver medals. Thank you for watching TaiwanPlus News. You can visit the TaiwanPlus website or follow our social media for more of our stories. Before we go, check out these images of dozens of hot air balloons filling the skies at a festival in the Czech Republic. I'm Yvonne Yang. Take care, and I'll see you next time.